Hey guys, and welcome to another video response. Today I want to do a video response to a guy called Brian. His channel is called Bugbears Brews. Cool name, by the way. And he did a video about character backstories. So I'd like to take some time to elaborate on that today.
Whoa!
So in Bugbears Brews video about character creation, he did, I think there's a 30-minute long video about character concepts and backstory and stuff. Unfortunately, it did kind of skew a bit towards D&D, so I kind of wanted to take a lot of what he said and kind of broaden the scope, if I may, and add my own viewpoints on this, because I think it's sometimes a bit too easy to get tied to one game rather than look at roleplay as a broader hobby. With any game, I think coming in as a blank slate is, I guess it's understandable when you're a new player and you're not really sure and you're sort of finding your feet in this system or in the game world, but investing in a game, investing in a character and kind of tying your character to that game world, I think always enriches the experience both for you and for other players, and even for the GM. I think D&D does suffer from, and I've said this before, D&D suffers, because it is a generic game world, it suffers from that genericness. It becomes difficult. So my advice is, briefly on D&D, is read around specific parts of the D&D game world. Check with your GM if there's something specific about D&D that they're sort of focusing on, and try and latch onto that to kind of give you a bit more of a character backstory with that. But certainly in game worlds where there is a more unique flavour, you'll find it easier to create a character backstory because there are those unique points in the world that you can attach yourself to. But there are, even without those things, there are things you can do. I mean, 5th edition is definitely moving towards a more background-focused thing that kind of adds backstory. One of the coolest systems I ever saw, actually, was the Star Trek roleplay game that came out, I think, in the late 90s, had a variety of different backgrounds were implied during your character creation. So you had early life, so it had things like was raised on an experimental colony, and that gave you sort of various skills and things from that. And then you had your academy life, you know, what were your experiences like at academy, and then depending on how experienced the character was, you had a number of tours of duty, and each of those gave you contacts or skills, and in some cases disadvantages, but they helped flesh out where your character had come from to the point at which you started playing. One of the things that Brian did say in his video, and he's dead right, is whatever you do with the character backstory, don't try and write a complete book. Really and truly, a character backstory should be the first chapter, and the rest of the character's story, the rest of their book, plays out during the course of the game. There's no point getting to the last page and well, I've got like a page to fill. So set up the strands that can be explored in the game. Invest in the game world if you can, you know, attach yourself to things in the game world. He's dead right, you know, having the simple backstory of, oh, well, I'm a lone warrior whose family were killed. Okay, that's quite generic. There's so much more you could do. Who killed them? Why were they killed? What was he doing before they were killed? What was his family like? Where did he come from? What does he plan to do when he finds the killer? And the other things you can do with these sorts of things also having long-term and short-term goals is another great way of planning the character's journey out. I mean, you don't want to plan it out too much because you want to run with whatever happens in the game world. So I would say, like, for instance, if a long-term goal is the find the man who killed my father, then a short-term goal might be find a swordsmaster who can teach me to become a better swordsman, because you need those sword fighting skills to fight this man who killed your father. And so that's a step up on the ladder towards the end goal. It's nothing wrong with having fixed goals, but your fixed goals should never become the king of the empire. They should never become world-shattering. Think in terms of the goals you have as a person. You know, most people's goals don't involve, I want to become the next president of the United States. Most people's goals are, I want to travel, or I want to own a house in 5 years' time. You think, well, how am I going to get to that house? What am I going to do? What are the steps you take to get there? And roleplay games are the ultimate expression of the journey, not the end. And so the journey is the important part. Yeah, you've got something that you're aiming for that's kind of way over there, but you should, as a character, you should be finding ways that you can move towards that in the scope of the story. And also that gives you the scope to interact not just with what the GM is giving you, but also what the other players give you. Interaction is the great leveler here. And sometimes the GM will give you something that wasn't in your character backstory, but you latch onto and you go, that's a great idea, I'm going to run with that in my character. And that's how you can have that evolution. I'm playing in a GURPS fantasy game at the moment where my character started off as a blacksmith with some sword fighting ability. He was the adopted son of a blacksmith who'd been murdered. So his backstory, yeah, he had the murdered family thing, but his backstory was that he was looking for his adoptive sister because she was the only family he had left, but also for the man who murdered his father and stole a lot of the weapons and armour that his father had made. And one of the plot points of my character was I spent a lot of points in character creation to have a sword, which was a massive investment. It was, but the sword was sentimental. It wasn't just that I had a sword. It was, this broadsword was a sword that my father made. I was beaten to the point of near death. You know, my character's body is covered in scars, and he clutched this sword so tightly that in the end they just left him bloody and on the verge of death. But that's a backstory. There's motivation here. His motivation is this kind of find what remains of his family and the man responsible. There are cues and things there. But then there are things that happened to him during the course of the game that expanded upon. He got challenged to an honour duel, and in this society you fight sort of shirtless and usually woaded up because it's a sort of Viking-esque game. And one of the characters said, well, we should get you tattooed for this. And so he said, well, we'll get you with the mark of the Dwarf Lord. The dwarves in this game are very much like the dwarves, like the Golden Army in Hellboy. And so the Lord of the Dwarves is this godlike, well, he is practically ascended to godhood, but he's also the patron god of the forge. And I got this tattoo on. Later on, we meet one of these dwarf-like creatures who are entirely mechanical and have their souls trapped in these gemstones. And this unfortunate one was actually dead. Its gemstone had been taken out, so its soul was missing. But with its last vestiges of energy, it touched what was a crude tattoo, and it smoothed it out, it infused it, it became a brand. And now my character has the deed name Ironborn. He is the chosen of the Lord of the Forge. And that's something that happened to me during the course of gameplay, but I've really adapted and run it, and so that's now part of my character's evolution story. And that couldn't have happened if I'd gone in with too much of a fixed background. One of the other things that I find very helpful as a player is collaborating with the other players and with the GM. So doing character creation sessions together is a great way, especially if you're new to a system and you've not played with those people or that GM before, is having that sort of dialogue with other people. You can establish a bit about the game world and use that to factor into your character, but you can also take cues from other characters. In another game I played, and this is one of my friends uses a lot when he's running games, is the idea of one of the other characters at the start of the game. Which character do you know? Why do you know them? What's the relationship? And so that means you're coming in already knowing another character, but also you then have a bit of backstory that's shared with them. And that's really cool. Things like that can be used to expand on your character no matter what system you're playing in. Having those common threads, those threads of fate, shall we say, are what really bring you together as a party. I think it's important that you have those connections, that you have the sort of scope to kind of explore that. I've seen games where people, they want to play the most generic background, and some people, that's their thing. But roleplay gaming is a creative hobby. Why not be creative? I mean, don't write War and Peace as your backstory. I mean, who the hell's got time to read like a small novel? If you've got that much backstory to write for your character, maybe consider writing a book, publishing it online as fan fiction. Flavor text is a great way to take additional stories of what your character's doing in downtime or where they come from, and just use it to pad up the game world. But don't feel that you have to write a lengthy thing. Sometimes just one side of paper with bullet points about things that happened in your character's life is enough. A good GM will appreciate the effort, and he'll pull at those strings and see what comes unraveling as a result, and that's the fun. One of my regular GMs, he always says never take a skill in character creation that you don't think will come up, because he will always find a way to make it come up in game. In one game we were playing, one of our characters was a genetically engineered cat girl who was trained as a bodyguard and a courtesan. So she was really, really good in combat, but she also had tea service as a skill. And the running joke was she'll never get to use this tea service skill. But the GM found a situation where she did, and it improved a social situation if she rolled well in that. She did, and that had an effect on the game. I love adding incidental skills and things into backgrounds like that. I know some systems have very set skill lists and you can't do much with. And other systems, if you're playing in a game where you've got a lot of scope in character creation, a lot of things that you can be freeform with, do it. Embellish it, because those embellishments are what make characters fun. I know one of my favourite roleplay games is 13th Age, and that has a really good system because there are no skills. You literally have backgrounds and you define your backgrounds. So in the first game I ever played of that, I played a undead hunter. So a couple of my backgrounds were things like temple training, because I was an acolyte, but I also had undead hunter. And that means that rather than being individual skills, they were broader skills. But I defined where my character came from as being on the edge of quite a mountainous region. So I had mountain climbing as a skill. It didn't come up very often, but it was just part of the background of the character. I mean, 13th Age also has the advantage of things like the one unique thing, and that's a great way to have that. And you don't even need to use 13th Age to use that. Having the one unique thing, having the what makes your character stand out in a world of thousands of, or maybe millions, how do you kind of frame your character in a unique way? And that's one of the things you can use, is the what makes your character unique. And that's really, I guess, the ultimate kind of crux of character concepts things, is having those little questions, you know, where did your character come from? Why do they have these skills, these abilities? Where did they learn these things? Who was their mentor? And also, you know, ask a couple of questions of where does the character want to be in 5 years' time? Well, no, that's like a job interview question, but you know what I mean. You know, you can, those little questions and things, you should be asking yourself as a player, because 9 times out of 10, the GM's going to ask you these things anyway. So go in, have an idea about, you know, where the characters come from. Invest in the game world, and you will have a much richer experience for it. Heck, if you're in right at the start of the game, some GMs like collaborative world building. One of the games that I've played in the past was a science fiction game called United Nations UNC, United Nations Colonies, where everybody played members of the UNCCM, United Nations Combined Colonial Militia, which was basically the Marines from films like Aliens or Starship Troopers. And part of the character creation process there was you created a 100-point GURPS character, but you also had to create and define the colony that your character came from and why your character left. So immediately you go, here is this society, here's how it works, here's what's interesting and unique about this colony, and here's why my character didn't fit in. And that's an immediate backstory that the GM was able to kind of play with. And he did, he brought all of those up. I realise I'm just spewing forth a lot of concepts and ideas here, and some of which you're not going to get, and you'll probably think, oh, what did he say? I'm going to have to play back the video. Don't be afraid to do that. Don't be afraid to go back and play this video back a couple of times, because you'll find the bits and pieces that are helpful to you into the character you're creating. And if it helps you create more dynamic and interesting characters, then my job here is done, really, you know. Heck, I might post up something I worked on a long time ago. I might post it on RPG Brigade, if you remember there, which was, I started doing this for World of Darkness because their characters actually have a bit on the character sheet and on the pre-made characters called character concept, which was usually like 1 or 2 word short kind of descriptors that kind of allowed you to sort of springboard character ideas. Maybe I'll post those up. Having little keywords and character descriptors are a great way of thinking, what is this character? Where do they come from? So my ultimate advice to you is think of the character, try to think outside the box. Don't just think in terms of race, class, stats, whatever mechanics they use in the system you're playing. Think of it in terms of, who is this as a person? And you will have a lot of fun with that, I promise. So yeah, this video's probably gone a bit longer than I thought it would, but hopefully I've provided you with some food for thought that will inspire you. If you've enjoyed this video, you can give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more of hear more of my thoughts on roleplay theory, character creation, and all those other things that are associated with our hobby, then there's a subscribe button below. And of course there are always links to my social media. I've been Avafan. This has been another pretty nerdy roleplay ramble, and I will leave you simply by saying, stay nerdy.